So just on my drive here, I was thinking about carpeting because I've got a property that we're looking to replace the carpet. I thought that might be a good topic to discuss, just considerations to think about when you're changing flooring out in your rentals. And if you manage a property long enough, you're going to end up changing flooring. In this case, we're talking about carpeting, but most flooring components have a useful life. Carpeting's typically 5 to 7 years. So if you start managing a property and the owner tells you that carpet's roughly 5 years old, relatively soon you're going to probably be looking at changing that out. And when it comes time to do that, I would suggest you obviously want to get a couple quotes for your landlords, but we usually try to stick with a mid-grade carpet and pad. There's really not much benefit in putting a high-grade material in, and I get that question sometimes from owners. The only time I would consider advising that is if the owner knows that their short-term plans include them coming back to the property and moving into it. In that case, they might want really nice carpet beneath their feet. But if it's a long-term investment for them, there's not a lot of benefit gained out of high-quality carpet. And the reason is that once you pass the useful life timeline, and it'll vary depending on what precedent is in your state, but usually it's around 5 to 7 years. After that point, legally that carpet has $0 of value. So if you put in double the cost high-grade carpet and it's 7 years old, it's still worth $0. The same as if you had spent half the amount and put mid or lower grade carpet and pad in. And that means that technically the tenant could light a bonfire in the middle of the living room, and you can't do anything about it. Like, you can't charge them any money against their deposit, because if they challenged it, a judge would say, well, you gave them carpeting that has $0 value, so they're only responsible to replace $0 in value. So for that reason, just go with a mid-grade carpet. As far as color goes, usually a neutral sandy beige type color, or maybe a gray if you've got like cool tone paint in the property. But usually we're putting in that neutral warm tone kind of beige color. It hides dirt really well. Over time in carpet, you start seeing traffic areas where people walk the most, and that seems to kind of blend in a little bit better with that color. So that's what we usually go for. Of course, as I mentioned, you'll want to get a couple quotes, 2 or 3 quotes. So hopefully you have some decent flooring companies on your vendor list that you trust. The time that we normally, as I said, you'll know useful life time frame, so you can start preparing your owner that they're going to have to look at replacing that carpeting soon. And I normally try to give them a year heads up. Once we rent the property, I'll tell them that they should expect that this is probably the last year, or at least the last tenancy they're going to get out of that carpet. And whenever this next tenant moves, whether it's a year or 5 years, they're going to need a budget for carpeting replacement. And that way it's not a big shock to them when they got to come up with $3,000 to $4,000 to put in new carpeting. And then when that next cycle comes around, when the tenant gives us their 60-day notice to vacate, we'll start showing the property. And sometimes that's when we notice that, this carpet's looking pretty rough. It's going to be a detractor to people wanting to rent this house. So we'll go ahead and get those quotes, while we're in that 60-day time frame. And if you can get your owner to approve it, you can get that scheduled in advance. It doesn't really extend your vacancy time after the tenants move that much. If you can get it on the books with a carpet vendor, they can roll right in there the day after move out and get the carpeting installed in one day. So as long as you do a little bit of planning on your part, it won't really be much of a vacancy loss to your owner. And yeah, that's just, always keep that in your mind. Good carpet is really not that expensive in the grand scheme of things, and it does really make an impact, on the rentability of the house. So it's going to attract better quality tenants, and better quality tenants typically are going to take better care of the property. So always, some benefits to explain to your landlord when they're having to kind of bite the bullet on that cost. So, all right, so good luck to you with that. I hope that's helpful.